are expected to be inked between New Delhi and Washington, D.C. In a major defense boost for India, the Defense Acquisition Council, led by Defense Minister Rajnath Singh today, approved the deal for acquiring Predator drones from the United States of America. That deal is going to be inked when the Prime Minister is there. Let's tell you more about what exactly this arsenal is going to be like. The MQ-9B Sea Guardian is a maritime-focused drone. It can fly over a horizon where satellite for over 30 hours. It can safely integrate into civilian airspace as well. It could surpass any other aircraft in its category, is what most analysts believe. They also have advanced systems. They can fully capture motion video. A Sea Guardian can be used in a variety of operations. It's not just necessarily for surveillance. It's also for many other issues like disaster management as well. So it is going to be a big boost. But with that, it's a wrap from my side.
Good evening, welcome to Brass Tacks. I'm Zakir Jacob. Initiating a fresh consultation process on the Uniform Civil Code, the Law Commission of India has invited views of the general public as well as religious organizations. The Commission has given 30 days' time to the public to present their views. The UCC essentially refers to a common set of laws governing personal matters, whether it's marriage, divorce, adoption, inheritance and succession for all citizens, irrespective of what their faith is. It is a hot-button political issue. The opposition has trained its guns on the centre, the Congress, the Samajwadi Party. Other parties have accused the BJP of playing divisive politics. But the BJP has maintained its stand that Uniform Civil Code is essential for national harmony and for national integration. Remember, in India right now, Goa is the only state that has a Uniform Civil Code. So, is it time to rise above the partisan divide and welcome a Uniform Civil Code across the country?
The Uniform Civil Code is the most secular anyone in a secular country can get. So if you pseudo-seculars cannot understand the importance of a uniform civil code, of having uniformity, of having a codified uniformity, etc. are concerned, then you really do not care about the people of India.
Agenda of the BJP is to sort of make this into a polarizing issue just before the elections next year, because their entire target is targeted particularly at one community and the practices they have in that community. And that's their propaganda tool to sort of other them and to sort of put them into a box and to say that this somehow needs urgent attention.
सिविल कोड का इम्प्लीमेंटेशन अपने मुल्क में प्रैक्टिकली पॉसिबल नहीं है, क्योंकि आप सब जानते हैं कि अपने मुल्क में हर 200-300 किलोमीटर पे ट्रेडिशन कल्चर्स बदल जाते हैं. यूसीसी प्रैक्टिकली पॉसिबल नहीं है, और फिर सिर्फ मुसलमान ही इसके मुखालिफ नहीं है, सिर्फ मुसलमान ही के पर्सनल लॉज नहीं है, बल्कि जितनी भी रिलीजियस कम्युनिटीज़ हैं सबके अपने पर्सनल लॉज हैं.
सर्वोच्च न्यायालय ने इस बारे में कड़ी टिप्पणियां भी की, कई सरकारों को लताड़ा भी है. अनेक न्यायालयों के निर्णय भी इसमें ऐसे बने जिसके कारण वोट बैंक की राजनीति ने उनको संसद के पटल पर पलट दिया.
So is it time for a uniform civil code? If we have the uniform criminal laws for all citizens of India, irrespective of your faith, why can't we have common civil laws? Ajay Alok is spokesperson of the BJP, Tehseen Poonawalla, political analyst, Vishnu Jain, advocate, and Kailash Vasudev, senior advocate, will also be joining us. Ajay Alok, the point that's being asked is, this was, as per the founding fathers of India, the Constituent Assembly, the Uniform Civil Code was meant to be part of the Constitution as part of the articles guaranteeing the fundamental rights. But because of opposition within the Constituent Assembly itself, it became a directive principle. A directive principle, as you well know, is not binding. It does not have any legal binding as is the case. So if the Constituent Assembly forefathers were wise enough to keep this in the back burner, why is the BJP and now the Law Commission raking this up, is the question being asked by the Congress and Samajwadi Party and others.
See, Zaka, if you trace the history nicely, you'll realize that during the Constituent Assembly there were lots of friction about implementing this Uniform Civil Code, so it was kept aside. Why? Because after partition of India, the Congress party especially, under the leadership of Nehru, they always wanted to monopolize one sect of Muslims together as the vote bank. The very idea of systematic impregnation of Muslim community by the Congress was exercised right from the first year by not implementing this Uniform Civil Code, still mentioning it in the Constitution. And year after year, we have seen every successive government keeps on just talking about this Uniform Civil Code, including our High Court, our Supreme Court, that there is a need of Uniform Civil Code. I mean, what's the problem in Uniform Civil Code when it's mentioned in our Constitution? What is the intention behind to oppose this Uniform Civil Code? Most of the countries have the Uniform Civil Code. Even if in Islamic nation you go, they have the Uniform Civil Code. Then what's the harm in a country like India, where we have so much pluralism, where we are a democratic setup and we can't have a Uniform Civil Code? Why this question? Why this debate? Who is opposing it and why they are opposed to? Why we can't have one law, one country for everyone? And the Uniform Civil Code specifically mentions about three things. It specifically mentions about land dispute. It specifically mentions about marriage. It specifically mentions about divorce. Then what's the issue? Are we not concerned about our female section of our country, which accounts for 50% of the population?
Okay.
The girls which are being subjected to exploitation. So all these things today, the demand is Uniform Civil Code is a part of the system and we have to get it implemented.
So, Tehseen Poonawalla, the idea of common civil laws for all citizens of a country, you can trace it all the way back to the Roman Empire, right? It's not a new idea. In Europe, for example, France became the first country to have common civil laws right after the French Revolution. Almost every major democracy in the world, the UK, the US, including non-democracies like China and Russia, have a common codified civil law. Why should India not have a civil law for all Indian citizens?
Saka, good evening. Thank you so much for having me on this show. To your first part of the question, before I pose my good friend Ajay Alokji, why should India not have a common civil code? It does already, because it is in relation to marriage and property thereafter and rights of women. It does. The Special Marriage Act. I married under the Special Marriage Act, Zaka. It is a common code where Zaka, Ajay, Alok, Tehseen, atheist, anybody can marry under that law. There is no binding. It is one law applicable from the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir to Kanyakumari, from Nagaland to Gujarat. One common law. It exists. Point number two, what you're talking about again with regards to marriages, various religions, they have their own set of laws, which you are saying to bring under the ambit of the Uniform Civil Code. Please bring it. Ajay Alokji's contention that this affects Muslims, it does not, because I'm giving you government data. It is actually polygamy is less amongst Muslims, higher amongst Hindus. For example, in the state of Gujarat, from where the most honorable Prime Minister and most honorable Home Minister come, there is something called a Maitri Karar, where men are allowed to have a legitimate relationship outside of their marriage. In the state of Goa, where the BJP rules, where there is the UCC, a Hindu man can have a second marriage if he does not have a boy child beyond the age of 30. This is existing today in 2023 India, Zaka. Now to the third part. So it does not affect Muslims as much. In fact, 84% of the brides below the age of 10 are Hindus, not Muslims. This does not affect Muslims. But let me give you another example. There are tribes in India. I used to do work in Nagaland. There are tribes in India where their customs are different from customs, say in Maharashtra or in Uttar Pradesh or in Delhi. For example, they are matriarchal tribes where, for example, the succession goes down to the son-in-law, the second son-in-law of the daughter, not even the first son-in-law. So there are different customs. Now, if you want to bring all those customs under one law, please do it. But don't do it under the ambit of Muslims, because this has nothing to do with Muslims, as data has showed. And if Ajay Alokji can kindly tell me that why is Maitri Karar in Gujarat, why is this in Goa? And lastly, I spoke about the Special Marriage Act. If you can please throw light on that.
So Ajay Alok respond, and then I'll go to Vishnu Jain and Kailash Vasudev right after that. Yeah, Ajay Alok.
I never said it that it applies to only Muslims. I said it only Muslim people and parties close to sentiments of the Muslims are opposing it. Hindu Code Bill was introduced way back in 1946 and it was continued by Jawaharlal Nehru, just citing the various ill things which were there in the Hindu society, and it was done. But at the same point of time, this Uniform Civil Code was opposed by the Congress party, congressmen, saying that the cultural identity of the minorities will be in danger, and that is dangerous to the democracy of this country. If you read that, that's the famous line quote, that the cultural identity of minorities in the country will be demolished, and then the democracy will come under threat. These were the famous lines said by Mr. Nehru itself, which is mentioned in the books in black and white. So right from the beginning of this Uniform Civil Code, it was only Muslim contention, never the Hindus. We are ready. That's why Hindu code bills were passed.
Okay.
We were opposed to it, but we accepted it. It's not a matter of religion, it's a matter of country.
Just one line.
It's a national
Just one line.
identity.
Okay. No,
Just
okay,
one line.
quickly, 10
Just one
seconds,
line.
Tehseen. I need to go to the two lawyers who are there on the...
Sure, and I apologize
Yeah.
to the two lawyers, my good friend Mr. Jain as well. First, the Muslim personal law was codified in 1930s, but that's not a debate. Minorities does not mean only Muslims. I gave the example of tribes in Nagaland, where it's matriarchal culture. Minorities is all of them, including tribes. So please do not get the contention of parties being close to Muslims. Let's be clear that minorities means linguistic minorities, parties, that tribes, scheduled tribes, etc.
So let me ask Vishnu Jain that, because, Tehseen has a point in as much as it's not just tribes. Of course, the tribals, some of them have different cultural practices when it comes to succession, when it comes to divorce, inheritance, etc. Even there are states, there are certain communities where there are matrilineal sort of succession. So the daughters actually acquire or inherit property and not the sons. So if even in Kerala, there are certain communities which have matrilineal. In Bengal, there are certain communities which have matrilineal succession. The point is that if you're going to bring all of this under UCC, then you are basically then saying that all of these practices will also have to be done away with. Are we ready for that?
See, first of all, when we are debating on the issue of UCC, we have to be very clear that what are the areas where we are seeking uniformity. Because when we are debating on UCC, let me tell you that the Supreme Court has dwelt into this issue when Minerva Mill was discussed, and it was categorically held that Article 14 and 19, read with Article 31C, has to be harmoniously construed. So now let me tell you what my point is. My point is not go and dwell into the issue of Uniform Civil Code until and unless we have a Uniform Penal Code. And Zaka, let me ask this question with all the panelists with utmost sense of responsibility. Let me quote section 494 of the IPC, which says and reads as under: whosoever having a husband or wife living marries in any case in which such marriage is void by reasons of its taking place during the life of such husband or wife shall be punished with imprisonment of either description or an extent to 7. So if I, during the lifetime of my wife, I will be being a Hindu. But if on the same footing, if someone is a Muslim and he has more than one marriage, he will not be punished. And the basic principle of criminal law is that it has to be uniform for all. If someone is doing theft, he has to be punished irrespective of his religion. So first area where we have to seek uniformity is the IPC, and I'm quoting and telling you the exact provision, which is section 494 of the IPC. I filed a petition in the Supreme Court. The 5 judges of the Supreme Court, the Constitution bench, has issued notice in the matter. Now let me tell you the other areas where we are seeking uniformity. The other areas are the areas of divorce, where we must insert the irretrievable breakdown of marriage as a ground for divorce. Leprosy, which is as a ground for divorce, must be deleted as a disease, because if it can be cured, then you can again marry. And these are whatever I am telling you today on your channel, all the recommendations of the Law Commission, 21st Law Commission, and it was dwelt upon by the Law Commission. The restitution of conjugal rights, section 9 of the Hindu Marriage Act, which was inserted, and it's a colonial era law, must be tackled. Then apart from that, bigamy must be abolished, polygamy must be abolished. Under the Christian Marriage Act, there is a provision that if someone wants divorce, there's a mandatory 2 years period of separation, which is not a very good law in today's era. Under the Parsi law, there's a provision that if a girl marries outside the community, then she'll be expelled from the community. There is, under the tribal community, there's endogamy, which is practiced. So these are certain areas. And apart from this, I must also highlight on your channel the age of marriage and the number of marriage. These are the two very, very crucial areas which goes to the root of the matter, which is a gender justice issue, which is an issue of female prestige and pride
No less,
And
no
therefore,
less.
all these two issues also,
Yeah,
it
no
should
less
be
than-
deliberated and debated upon.
Sure. No,
from the
I
perspective
agree.
of
I
uniform
agree with
civil
what
code.
Vishnu Jain has said, but I want to ask Mr. Vasudev, no less than the Supreme Court in multiple judgments has alluded to the need to have a uniform civil code. The Supreme Court recently amplified its support for the UCC, calling it an unaddressed constitutional expectation, and also hoped and expected that the state shall endeavour to secure for all citizens of India a uniform civil code throughout all territories of India. This is the Supreme Court of India. Then why are we then still sort of, tipping around toes when it comes to implementing the Uniform Civil Code?
Good evening, Zaka. There are two aspects to this. One is the Uniform Civil Code in a country which is deemed to be secular. We are a secular country as deemed in the
Constitution, yes.
terms of the Constitution. Our preamble says so. On the other hand, within the framework of the Constitution, you have divisions and accepted divisions of minorities. You have the 5th schedule, you have the 6th schedule, you have areas which are definitely controlled and differently regulated. You have the adaptation of laws of 1947, where the old laws were accepted, the Muslim Divorce Act, the Hindu Marriage Act, and so on and so forth. There are so many acts which came into the purview of the Constitution. In 1950, when we accepted the Constitution, we said we are a secular country, but a democratic country simultaneously. Both now have to be read together. The Supreme Court's observation, you must have a standard law, is correct. They are trying to follow a system or recommending a system which prevails in some countries, as was mentioned right in the beginning. France has it, USA has it, England has it, because their constitutions do not have the diversity which we have in our system. To bring about a uniform civil code, you've got to make it applicable not only to matrimonial things, but to all aspects of life. In Goa, when the Portuguese Civil Code applies, which is called the Civil Code of Goa, it deals with everything. It deals with matrimony, properties, succession, transfer of lands. Everything is covered under the various chapters of the Portuguese Civil Code as applicable to Goa. The same thing then must be done here to get rid of all the other laws, because in Goa, there is no other law which applies.
Okay.
Till 1962, then the other Indian laws applied. So under the Portugal Civil Code, under the Civil Code applicable to those countries, there is no division in laws. There's a standard law for everything.
No,
in our system, to have
why
that,
can't we have that across the country? I mean, and I'm saying for the
coming to
entire
that
gamut,
exactly.
succession,
I'm coming to
inheritance,
that.
adoption, all of
That is
that.
precisely what I want to answer. You've then got to have constitutional amendments, get rid of the minority rights, get rid of the 6th schedule, change the backward class definitions, remove the tribal protections, amend the constitutional duties, amend the provisions which pertain to what is supposed to be done by government. The rights of, you see, you'll have to have a massive reworking of the entire system.
No, but I don't understand why,
and
though. Because why should minority rights, the definition of it change? Just because you need a uniform civil code, why should definition of minority rights or who constitutes backward classes, who constitutes tribals, why does that need to change?
See, that has to change because you're going to standardize the law for everybody. You're not looking at matrimony alone. Then you've got to look at everything for them. Procedures in court, procedures in private laws, procedures as far as rights are concerned, ownership of lands. Everything then comes within the purview of the Uniform Civil Code. Please don't look at it in an abstract manner that we're dealing with a particular situation.
So Vishnu Jain wants to respond to that. Basically, what he's saying is that the BJP has reduced this argument just to marriage and divorce. Don't look at it from just that. A whole host of issues, including minority rights, land rights, etc., are involved in coming up with the UCC.
That's right. You got
to
Yes, with great respect to my senior, I would like to say and differ with my senior on certain aspects. And the point is like this, that my position is very clear on your channel, and my position is that when we are debating on uniform civil code, we have to debate on all the areas where we are seeking uniformity, irrespective of marriage, irrespective of land, irrespective of interstate succession relationships, everything which comes within the purview of morality, good health, and public order, we must debate. Point number one. Point number two, my senior very categorically stated here that there will be lot of changes in the law which need to be brought in to implement the Uniform Civil Code. But with greatest of respect, I want to differ and say that Article 31C of the Constitution was inserted by the government, and the Minerva Mills judgment has upheld the first part of Article 31C, which says that if any law is brought to implement the directive principles of the state policy, which Uniform Civil Code is, as under Article 44 of the Constitution of India, then that law cannot be challenged on the touchstone of Articles 14 and 19. The meaning is that if Uniform Civil Code is brought by the Parliament, then it cannot be challenged on the touchstone of Article 14, saying that it is violating equality, and it cannot be challenged on the ground of Article 19. So therefore, the issue and the scope is very clear. The Parliament is very clear that if any law is brought to implement the directive principles of state policy, it cannot be said that it is unreasonable. So law and bill can be passed by the Parliament, and it need not go into the aspect of various amendments, as my senior was pointing out that Article 29 and 30.
So Parliament has the power to do so, is what you're saying. Anyway, but let me ask Ajay Alok, but Parliament is not where this issue is being debated. This issue, first you had the example of Uttarakhand, where after the election, before the election it was promised, and after that they have set up a commission to look into it. Now you have the Law Commission giving people 30 days time to respond. Parliament is the only authority, is the only institution or body which has the authority to amend the constitution to enable a UCC. And the BJP is not bringing any sort of amendment to Parliament. Instead, the accusation from the Congress and the others is you're firing off the back of either state governments or Law Commission. Ajay Alok.
See, first of all, I'll tell you that Uttarakhand government constituted a committee under Justice Ranjana Desai, and the committee is in the last stage of doing work. And based on that committee's evaluation and report, Uttarakhand government is going to implement this UCC in Uttarakhand. And that Justice Ranjana Desai report is even being awaited by the Law Commission also. Because on that pattern only, the UCC is going to be implemented. See, when the question arises that you have to change the minority rights, right of minority rights, all these technical glitches, this doesn't come into play. Minorities are everywhere in those countries where Uniform Civil Code is applicable. For example, in France, the Muslim minority there, but Uniform Civil Code is there. In United States, many Indians, Hindus are in minority, Muslims are in minority, but Uniform Civil Code is in place. So Uniform Civil Code is a national identity which binds a nation together, that one law is applicable to all nations. But here in India, the people has a problem that they started looking at it from wearing a specs from communal angle. That creates the problem, and that is the problem right from independence time. Had it not been a problem, this Uniform Civil Code would have come into play after 47 or 51 when the Constitution was enacted. But it was never done. That's what I'm telling you, Zaka. In my opening statement, I said that here in India, just to appease the minority, a formidable vote bank, this was kept in the Constitution but not implemented. Why? So the very reason that the vote bank politics in this country is such divisive that it just even forgets the national identity. This is the problem. What we are saying, that Uniform Civil Code gets a national identity, a cultural identity for the Indians. This is the necessity.
Tehseen Poonawalla,
right to minority.
Again, the disparity is that you had the Hindu Code Bill pioneered by no less than Dr. Ambedkar. This was in the 1950s. This was far-reaching reforms when it comes to marriage, guardianship, divorce, inheritance, etc. Despite people protesting. There were protests at that time when the Hindu Code Bill was introduced. Whereas in the case of reformation of Muslim personal law, and you are already well aware of this, even when the Supreme Court ruled in the Shah Bano case, you saw the political backlash. So when Ajay Alok and others say that the only reason parties like the Congress and other opposition parties don't want to bring in a UCC is because they want to, preference the rights, the civil rights of one community over others. And that, in a democracy, you cannot have, one community's civil rights more important or protected than other communities.
So, Zaka, let me take half of your question, and I actually agree to what you say, that personal laws in India do require some amount of reforms, and there's no running away from that. There was the Hindu Code Bill. The Muslim Code Bill came out in the 1930s. Am I audible? Because I think I've lost visual.
You are audible. You are audible.
Yes, thank
Go on.
you.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Go on. I can hear you.
Thank you. So yes, there must be certain amount of reforms in all personal laws, and let the government of India get those personal laws to reform. So, for example, the charge that Vishnu Jain, a very competent lawyer, said, he said, look, there's polygamy in Muslims. Get rid of it in the Muslim personal law. Nobody is denying it. But at the same time, what was not addressed on your show is Maitri Karar in Goa, in Gujarat, or for example, in Goa, a Hindu male who does not have a male child can have a second marriage under the uniform code in Goa. So let's address those personal law aspects and bring them under a sort of gender justice. Nobody is denying that. But let's come to a larger issue that I want to raise, Zaka, through your medium. Like I said earlier, this is not about a religion or one religion. It's about different religions, different tribes. Let's look at the Northeast right now. I don't want to make this political, but Manipur is burning. The BJP, while campaigning recently in Northeast, promised no UCC. Recently, this is the elections that they won in Nagaland, etc. What's going to happen? These states that have merged within the Union of India wanted to protect their identity. How are you going to bring all of them on board at a time when Manipur is in such a tense situation? This is only for political gains. Let me go one step further and bring some more issues. In Kerala, and I know that the one nation, one law is not about beef, but in Kerala, the BJP says that, look, we will allow for beef cooperatives. It says that in the Northeast as well. Now, one nation, one law. Why don't you have a law against cow slaughter all in the country? That was my case in the Supreme Court. By the way, not having cow slaughter is also directive principle. Why do you not want to implement that? If we finish this debate and I decided to take my good friend Ajayji out to a restaurant which is serving alcohol, by the way, getting rid of alcohol is also a directive principle. Why don't we make India a dry state? Why is that not being implemented? So, end of the day, directive principle, fundamental rights are more important than directive principles. The BJP has only brought this in to polarize the country. It has nothing to talk about the future.
No, so Vishnu Jain, you've seen the case that happened in Manipur. It was on the back of a High Court decision that certain benefits that were being given to tribal communities, the Kuki community, was also extended to the Métis. And you've seen the response to that. Now, if you're going to get a uniform civil code, which is going to, brush aside centuries-old, cultural practices amongst those tribals, how are you going to deal with the effect of that? And please answer what Tehseen also said, that the BJP, even in this last election cycle in the Northeast, where it won 3 states, did promise that there won't be UCC.
See, first of all, I started with my opening comments by saying that there has to be a harmonious construction between the Uniform Civil Code, which is the part of the directive principles of state policy, with the fundamental rights. And therefore, this deliberation has been done by the Law Commission, and these applications have been invited to deliberate. That Law Commission has not taken a decision to bring UCC or not to bring UCC. Law Commissions, I must tell you on your channel that 21st Law Commission had said that there cannot be any uniform civil code as of now, because they were not able to identify the areas where they are seeking uniformity. So the question is that when we are going into the issue of uniform civil code, we must first of all identify the areas where we are seeking uniformity, and the discrimination which is happening in the entire country and which is leading to conversion. I highlighted on your channel section 494 of the IPC, which is giving the provision of bigamy, because of which many people are converting, because they will take shed under the Islam religion, and then they will be protected from offense which happens in other communities, as because under section 494.
But Tehseen says that data from the National Health and Family Welfare Survey suggests that there is more polygamy and bigamy amongst Hindus than there is in Muslims.
Yes.
So definitely I'm saying, if there is such like that, then there are FIRs which are registered and they will be booked under law. But the discrimination which a Hindu is facing is that under Islam a person can have more than one wife, and that is permitted under Islam, and that is not an offense under section 494 IPC. So there is no uniformity so far as section 494 is concerned.
Okay.
And the point which I'm raising today is not in just it's after deep research. We have raised this issue before the Supreme Court. The 5 judges of the Honorable Supreme Court have issued notice in the matter. So that this is the legal research which has been done.
So let Tehseen respond to that. In any case, Tehseen, in this day and age, you should not have codified by any kind of personal law that a person can have more than one, legally wedded wife or husband.
That's true. So that I agree that those personal laws must be amendments must be brought in. No doubting that. But Vishnu Jain bhai made one point that, for example, say a Hindu fellow citizen marries a second wife, but he converts to Islam, so he gets away with that. That is no longer allowed. So the courts have come down on it. So that is actually not allowed. I understand that there have been some people in the past who've misused it. That's not allowed. But again, a majority, 84% of the brides below the age of 10 have been Hindu girls. So what I'm trying to say is, don't look at this from a religious spectrum. Look at it from a spectrum of women and gender justice. And then in those personal laws, please bring about reforms that are required.
No, that's precisely why the UCC is, for example,
Exactly.
in the case of alimony, right? A Hindu woman, as per the Hindu Marriage Act, is entitled legally to alimony if a divorce goes through. A Muslim woman is not, because the personal laws prevent that.
Sure, but even let's look at it in the Northeast. Their alimony and their succession laws are completely different. Now, when you bring everything under, what are you going to do? These states have, again, all come into this union agreeing that their culture will be protected.
No.
If you want to bring it all under one culture, I have no problem, but discuss with them. Otherwise, there will be a problem. This does not have to do with Hindu and Muslims.
You protect what you need to protect, but you cannot protect something that is discriminatory. Kailash Vasudev, I think that is the bottom line. If having multiple, spouses, and if a personal law is sort of protecting you from any criminal action as a consequence of that, then that personal law needs to change. Similarly, if a woman is divorced and if she's entitled to alimony just because she happens to be from one faith and not entitled to alimony because she happens to be from another faith, that is a question of discrimination. Mr. Vasudev. Can you hear me, Mr. Vasudev? You will have to unmute, sir, please. We can't hear you, though.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. You see, then you said there will be a uniform civil code or a uniform law for a particular jurisdiction or a particular discipline. You can't have a uniform civil code as it is being contemplated. Now, Assam has introduced a uniform civil code bill. It has been referred to somebody, referred to a larger body for reconsideration. Because personal laws can be standardized. Property laws can be standardized. For example, Article 14, 16, 19 of the Constitution are a unique situation that's applicable and available to everybody.
Okay.
But in the application of 14, 16, 19, there also the Constitution says there are reservations. 19, 1, 2, 3. They have reservations and restrictions understanding the situation. Schools. Article 25 to 30, minority schools. The Christian schools, the Muslim schools, the Parsi schools, the Sikh schools, the linguistic minorities. How can you get rid of them unless you don't have a standard law? So you look at the law from the point of view of standardizing a particular situation in a particular situation applicable for a particular law. If you're looking at it for an all India transition of implementation of a UCC, you have opened up a very major constitutional amendment debate is required now.
Okay.
You cannot do it without amending the Constitution.
Yeah, on that I agree. Yes, on that I agree, because ultimately whatever the Law Commission's recommendations are, its findings are, ultimately
you'll have a test on the constitutional provisions.
You will have to pass this in Parliament. You'll have to amend the Constitution. That's the only institution which can amend the Constitution. But we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much to all our guests. I'm going to move on to the other big story, and that is Cyclone Biparjoy, which has made landfall. Heavy winds and rain is pummeling the Gujarat coast. The IMD has said that landfall will be completed by later tonight. The coastal districts of Saurashtra and Kutch are bearing the brunt of the cyclone's fury. The authorities have successfully relocated about 45,000 individuals from these coastal areas. They're all in temporary shelters right now. The NDRF, SDRF, Army, Coast Guard and naval teams have also been deployed. The Gujarat government has established 24/7 control rooms to oversee all the operations.
बहुत ज्यादा मुश्किल है। आप लोग बता रहे थे कि महातबाही हो सकती है। मैं कहूँगी तबाही होनी शुरू हो चुकी है। ये तस्वीरें आप देख लीजिए, क्योंकि यहाँ पर हवाओं की रफ्तार काफी ज्यादा है और अपने आप को संभालना बेहद मुश्किल हो रहा है, बेहद चुनौती ज्यादा है। विकास, आप तस्वीरें दिखाइए, क्योंकि जिस तरीके की इस वक्त तस्वीरें हैं, आप देख सकते हैं कि यहाँ पर हवाओं की रफ्तार काफी ज्यादा है। रौद्र रूप दिखाना इस तूफान ने शुरू कर दिया है। बिपरजॉय, जिसका मतलब ही आपदा है, आपदा लेकर के आया है। ये माना जा रहा था कि द्वारकाधीश में जो है ज्यादा तबाही होगी और ऐसा होना शुरू हो चुका है। यहाँ पर लहरों ने तांडव मचाना शुरू कर दिया है। कुदरत का रौद्र रूप देखने को मिल रहा है। तो हम ये तस्वीरें आप तक टूट चुकी हैं पूरी तरीके से। यहाँ पर आप देखेंगे ये पेड़ किसी भी वक्त गिर सकता है, तो खतरा बहुत ज्यादा है। मेरे सहयोगी विकास ठाकुर आप तक तस्वीरें पहुंचा रहे हैं, और वाकई क्योंकि ये अपने आप में अनुभव अलग है और टीमें तैनात है, लेकिन जिस तरीके से हवाओं की रफ्तार है, क्योंकि हवाओं की रफ्तार पर ही सब कुछ डिपेंड करेगा। और अभी तो समय है, लैंडफॉल में समय है, लेकिन उससे पहले ही यहाँ पर कुदरत का रौद्र रूप देखने को मिल रहा है। ये जो लोग अभी देख रहे हैं, ये बहुत बड़ा खतरा है जिसको लेकर के केंद्र सरकार तैयार है, गुजरात सरकार पूरी तरीके से तैयार है, और ये तस्वीरें हम आप तक पहुंचा रहे हैं। आप देखिए कि द्वारका वो जिला जो सबसे ज्यादा प्रभावित हो सकता था, जैसा कि मौसम विभाग का अनुमान था, और यह अनुमान बिल्कुल सही साबित हुआ है, क्योंकि जो सैटेलाइट के जरिए तस्वीरें सामने आई थी, जो इस वक्त तकनीक है, उस तकनीक के जरिए सब कुछ देखा जा सकता है। मुझे 1998 का जो कांडला बंदरगाह पर तूफान आया था, वो तस्वीरें मैंने देखी, वो तस्वीरें देखी, और अब मैं अनुभव कर पा रही हूँ कि जो चक्रवात को वेरी सीवर कैटेगरी में रखा गया था, उसका मतलब क्या होता है, इसको इतना बड़ा खतरा क्यों कहा जा रहा था, ये अब हम महसूस कर पा रहे हैं। और यहाँ पर कल्पना नहीं थी कि ऐसा मंजर होगा।
All right, I want to go across to my colleague Vinaya Deshpande, who's joining us live from Dwarka. Vinaya, the process of landfall is still on. I believe it will continue for another few hours. What is it looking like where you are? I know it's dark all around you, but how has it been so far? And what is the IMD saying? How long more before the storm passes?
Well, Zaka, I am right now at Devbhoomi Dwarka, where it has borne the brunt of the landfall of Cyclone Biparjoy, and we are seeing that the wind speed has continued to increase in the last few hours. In fact, till around an hour ago, it was almost impossible to even stand here. The IMD says that the landfall process will continue till midnight, well till midnight today, which means that the speed of the winds will continue to surge till that time. We are also expecting heavy rainfall in this area as well, including in Kutch and Saurashtra, where it continues to be on red alert. As of now, heavy winds continue to lash Dwarka, where we are standing, and there are several incidents which have been reported due to the fury of the cyclone. As the landfall has begun, we have seen that several poles have come down, several single structures like walls, electricity poles, also metal constructions have all come cringing down. We have also seen that the tin roofs of several buildings have flown off, and as the wind speed continues to rise over the last few hours, it's expected to be like this in the coming few hours as well, till midnight. We are right at the seashore. It's too dark for us to show you the seashore, but the sea has been extremely scary and violent for the last few hours. The waves have been quite high. They've been hitting on the shores. In fact, the sea, which is around 100 meters away from here, I can taste the salt water on my face, the salt water in my eyes, and I can see that the sand has been hitting us throughout this entire period. So, as we stand here to show you the visuals of destruction of Cyclone Biparjoy, it has been an increasing challenge to stay here and to bring on the live visuals.
All right.
Even as the wind speed has been growing on, remember at least 10,000 people from here, from Dwarka alone, have been moved to safety. And even as the landfall continues, aid is being provided at several locations. Food packets are being distributed by the administration. Even as efforts are on to clear the debris which has blocked the streets at several locations, the highway has been distributed from several agencies which have been interested to clear them over the next few hours to make sure that transport does not get disrupted. There is already an electricity outage in the entire city. The electricity supply has been completely cut off.
All right, Vinaya, we'll let you go so that you can take some shelter. You can get away from this storm. But thank you very much for your brave reporting, standing there in what is clearly very, very adversarial conditions. But thank you for your reporting, and do take care, both you and your camera person. It has been, the nature's fury, as it were, not just in Dwarka, but across many districts in Kutch as well as in Saurashtra. We have our battery of reporters, including Vinaya, who you heard from a moment ago, our reporters in our sister Hindi channel, as well as, of course, in our local Gujarati channel. They've all been filing over the last 24 hours, plus documenting the fury of Cyclone Biparjoy, even as it made landfall.
बारिश शुरू हो चुकी है, भीषण इस वक्त बारिश हो रही है और हवा की रफ्तार अभी भी तेज है। लैंडफॉल हो चुका है तूफान का। सबसे पहले न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया ने एक खबर बताई थी, लेकिन इसका जो इफेक्ट है वो भी पूरी तरीके से दिख रहा है, क्योंकि जैसे ही हवा की रफ्तार ज्यादा होती है, खुद पर संतुलन पाना बेहद मुश्किल हो जाता है। अभी अंधेरा हो चुका है, हम कोशिश करते हैं, क्योंकि बारिश भी काफी ज्यादा है, तस्वीरें आप तक पहुंचाएं। आप देखिए कि नुकसान काफी ज्यादा हुआ है। नुकसान का आकलन तो कल होगा कि किस तरीके से कितना नुकसान हुआ है, क्योंकि कुछ घंटे काफी ज्यादा अहम है। जब तक जकाऊ ये पहुंचेगा, उसके बाद हम देखेंगे कि पड़ोसी राज्य राजस्थान में भी इसका असर शुरू होगा। लेकिन ये तस्वीरें भयावह है, क्योंकि जो ये तूफान है, जैसा कि इसका नाम ही आपदा है और वाकई आपदा लेकर के आया है। हाल के दिनों में अगर हम देखें, पिछले कुछ सालों का आंकड़ा निकाले, तो ये बिपरजॉय, जो कि सबसे खतरनाक श्रेणी में था, 135 किलोमीटर प्रति घंटे की रफ्तार इसके पास इसकी रफ्तार है। और जिस तरीके से जो इस वक्त तस्वीरें हैं, जो हम आप तक सुबह से लगातार पहुंचा रहे हैं, यकीन मानिए बहुत मुश्किल है खड़े होना, बोल पाना, खबरें पहुंचाना। और अभी अगर हम देखें, द्वारका ये वो जिला है जो सबसे ज्यादा प्रभावित होगा, जैसा कि अनुमान था, लेकिन पूरी टीमें मुस्तैद है। हम NDRF की बात करें, हम SDRF की बात करें, जो गुजरात के मुख्यमंत्री हैं भूपेंद्र पटेल, उन्होंने इमरजेंसी बैठक की थी। अगर विकास आप तस्वीरें दिखा पाए, देखिए ये जो बोट था ये गिर चुका है, और ये जो पूरा यहाँ पे स्ट्रक्चर था ये पूरी तरीके से गिर चुका है। यहाँ पर नुकसान काफी ज्यादा हुआ है। नुकसान का आकलन होगा, क्योंकि हम भी अपने आप को बचाते हुए, हम भी सेफ्टी के साथ हम आगे नहीं जा रहे हैं, क्योंकि यहाँ पर भी खतरे से खाली नहीं है। ऐसे में अपने आप को बचाते हुए, बारिश कितनी ज्यादा है, जैसा जो भी मौसम विभाग का अनुमान था वो सही साबित हुआ है।
Well, right now the wind speed has kept on increasing for the last 1 hour or so. We have seen that the weather has only grown rougher. This really is the tough phase of Cyclone Biparjoy. We can see the kind of violent impact that the cyclone is having even as the landfall has begun. Here at Devbhoomi Dwarka, the wind speed has been rising. We have been lashed by incessant rainfall, for the last 1 hour or so. The sea has also grown violent in the last 1 hour. In fact, the visibility has dipped so much that it is difficult to show you the violent sea, which is right ahead of me behind my video journalist. But you can imagine the kind of impact that these winds must have had on the several installations and on the infrastructure on the coastal region of Dwarka. We have seen that, here in this area at least, several poles have come down, canopies have come down, trees have borne the brunt of the violence that Cyclone Biparjoy has unleashed. We are seeing that as the landfall has begun, this has only increased the speed of the wind, making it impossible for us to stand here. The sea, which is at least 100 meters away from here, the sea water is traveling all the way across to here. Salt water on our faces, in our eyes, lashing us like a whip. This is indeed the fury of Cyclone Biparjoy. As we try to stay steady, it is increasingly difficult. I think I have lost the audio as well. I don't know if you can hear me, but I seem to have lost the audio. I am unable to hear the studio, but what I can do is bring you the visuals from here, from ground zero, where we are seeing the fury of Cyclone Biparjoy. wind speeds have increased tremendously. I can't even keep my eyes open at this point because of the salt water that is continuously lashing our faces. Rains have also increased. The skies are overcast. IMD says that till tonight rough winds will be expected even as the landfall of Cyclone Biparjoy continues. As of now, thousands of people have been moved to safety at several rescue centers that have been set up across the coastal areas.
मांडवी में इस वक्त जो स्थिति है वो बेहद खराब हो रही है। मांडवी की तस्वीर हम आपको दिखा रहे हैं। देखिए बहुत तेज बारिश यहाँ पर अब शुरू हो गई है। मैं तस्वीर आपको दिखाना चाहूँगा। ये देखिए किस तरह से ये पूरी सड़क जो है वो खाली है। आपको सिर्फ एक कार नज़र आएगी और बारिश इतनी ज़्यादा है कि इस पूरी सड़क पर आपको धुंध नज़र आएगा। यहाँ देखिए हवा बहुत तेज़ चल रही है। यहाँ खड़े हो पाना बहुत मुश्किल हो पा रहा है। और देखिए मैं अपने कैमरा पर्सन पंकज से कहूँगा कि ज़रा दिखाएं वो हवाओं को पेड़ के ज़रिए दिखाएं कि किस तरह से जो पेड़ हैं, बड़े बड़े पेड़ हैं, वो किस तरह से हिल रहे हैं, झुक रहे हैं बाकायदा। ये देखिए तस्वीर देखिए ज़रा, ये देखिए बहुत स्थिति अब हम शहर की दिखा रहे हैं। ये स्पीड बहुत ज़्यादा स्पीड है विंड्स की, ये विंड की स्पीड बहुत ज़्यादा नज़र आ रही है। और देखिए लोग यहाँ, कुछ लोग सड़क पर चल रहे थे, वो किस तरह से यहाँ पर एक तरफ खड़े हो गए सड़क से बचने, इस बारिश और हवा से बचने के लिए। ये देखिए यहाँ कुछ महिलाएं और बच्चे जो हैं वो सड़क के किनारे छिपे हुए हैं, लेकिन हम स्थिति यहाँ पर दिखा रहे हैं कि क्या हालात यहाँ पर हैं। क्योंकि जिस जगह हम मौजूद हैं अब यहाँ शहरों में वो असर दिखना शुरू हो गया है जिस बात की आशंका थी। आशंका ये थी कि तूफान जब आएगा तो नुकसान हो सकता है, और वो अब यहाँ पर उसकी जो तस्वीरें हैं वो दिखनी इसलिए शुरू हो गई क्योंकि हवा बहुत तेज़ है। इनमें सबसे ज़्यादा जो नुकसान होता है वो कच्चे घरों को होता है, जो टेम्परेरी स्ट्रक्चर होते हैं उसको बहुत ज़्यादा नुकसान होता है। आप ज़रा ये इस सड़क को देखिए, पूरी तरह से ये सड़क खाली है, पूरा शहर बंद है। कुछ एक लोग हैं जो इन सड़कों पर निकल रहे हैं, या तो कहीं से जा रहे हैं, या फिर मीडिया के लोग इन इलाकों में घूम रहे रिपोर्टिंग के लिए। लेकिन यहाँ आप देखेंगे सब जो पूरे मार्केट है, जो होटल्स हैं, वो सब आपको बंद नजर आएंगे।
We are right now in Dwarka where the speed of winds is making it impossible to even stand at a specific location and hold on to your position. My video journalist Rajesh Sapre and I, both of us, are finding it a bit difficult to keep standing and to keep holding grounds even as the wind speed due to Cyclone Biparjoy as it comes close to a landfall has only been increasing. Over 75,000 people have been moved to safety till now is what NDRF says. Of them, close to 10,000 from Dwarka alone, the place where I am right now. Let us try and show you the visuals around this place. This is Dwarka where you're continuously seeing heavy rainfall. You know, all the pots have come down and fallen and broken. There's a pillar that was standing here, which you can see right now, has come down. The tin sheds that are there on this particular hotel and establishment, you know, we can see that the bamboo which is holding those tarpaulin sheets is already loosening up. The flow of the wind as well as the incessant rainfall. You can see the impact of it all due to Cyclone Biparjoy as it comes closer to a landfall. My video journalist Rajesh Sapre is showing you the trees that are being impacted due to the cyclone. Also, we are right close to the seashore. As you can see, the barricading to the electric box that is there, even that is being shattered. It's being cemented to the ground, but that cement holding is also shattering due to the speed of the winds, as you can see here. So it's becoming increasingly difficult to stand and to give out information of the kind of mayhem that is being caused due to the cyclone. We are just a few meters away from the sea, but the visibility of the sea is also getting affected. If I can request my video journalist to show you, there's a tremendous swell in the sea. We can see the waves from where we are standing. The level of sea has risen. Yes, things have already gotten quite worse. You can continuously see that the wind speed has been increasing. It has become difficult to see things that are just 50 to 80 meters away, as well as if I may show our viewers, our video journalist Rajesh Sape, who has been continuously showing all the live visuals. Look at the sea, the violent sea here, how the waves look so scary. We've been seeing that these waves have been continuously lashing at the waves have been continuously lashing at the coast of Dwarka. We are seeing that the sea levels have risen considerably, and though we are seeing that the landfall has in some sense begun, the violent nature of the sea has not really subsided. There is, the skies are overcast, extremely grey clouds, dark clouds that are moving very fast now. We will try and get you more visuals. Let me show you. This can be a classic example of what it's a telling example of what the cyclone looks like. This is the Dwarka beach, a very famous tourist destination where devotees throng this place every day. At this time, on other days, this place sees a heavy footfall, and hundreds of people are seen here otherwise. But right now, as you can see, this entire area wears a deserted look, even as Section 144 has been imposed. There was a time in the day where we could see the Dwarkadish temple top from here, but right now the visibility is affected and we can barely see anything with respect to the temple from here. Rajesh Sape is trying to bring you all the visuals from here at Dwarka coast, where the sea levels have risen and the sea looks extremely scary right now.
It's one, graft charge after another, and as the ED investigates some of the more talked about scams like the teacher recruitment scam, the fundamental question, Riju, that will be asked is, this is the poorest who are being looted in the name of jobs. The worst kind of corruption.
If they can do that as per US law, then what is wrong in the Indian government asking this platform to remove tweets which had potential for incitement to violence as per Indian law?
What the government is proposing, the opposition is opposing or disposing. So if there is a change in government in 2024, or if you don't get an absolute mandate,
2024 will be even more of a decisive mandate than 2019.
To the coast of Kutch, and as the climatic condition worsens here, not just in Dwarka but around Porbandar, Mandvi and Kutch area as well. So Saurashtra and Kutch have been put on red alert since yesterday other places are on orange alert, and rainfall is expected today. The wind speed is expected to continue to surge over the next few hours. In Devbhoomi Dwarka itself, where I'm standing, the speed of wind has increased as compared to yesterday, though right now for a few moments we can see that there is a dip, but it is expected that the climatic situation will only worsen in the coming few hours before Cyclone Biparjoy makes a landfall by today evening at around 7 p.m. There was some rainfall that was happening till a while ago, but right now there is respite.
Well, CNN News 18's Vinay Deshpande is joining me live from Dwarka in Gujarat, and she is going to bring you all the latest developments from Ground Zero. Vinay, I hope you are safe there. Could you give us all the details from Ground Zero? Also, could you tell us about the key areas that are going to be affected apart from Gujarat?
Well, we can see that, as the cyclone is progressing towards the coast of Kutch, we are seeing that, more and more winds have started blowing. In fact, we are here in Devbhoomi Dwarka, where the wind speeds have increased substantially. So has the swell in the sea. Section 1 has been imposed in different parts of the coastal areas in order to make sure that people do not come out of their houses and are safe. Over 45,000 people who live in low-lying areas and who live in kacha houses have already been evacuated. As we heard that efforts are going on war footing, especially in places like Kutch, Mandvi, Jakhau Port, Dwarka, Porbandar, which are likely to take the brunt of the landfall of Cyclone Biparjoy. As we speak, the sea continues to swell. The wind speed has been increasing, and administration tells us that efforts are on to make sure that there are proactive steps that are being taken in order to minimize the damage that is likely to take place because of the cyclone. So we have seen that already people have been evacuated. Most importantly, several kacha constructions which are expected to get razed due to the impact of the cyclone. These kacha constructions are not just evacuated, but also areas around them are being monitored. Around 100 electricity poles have come down since yesterday in Dwarka district alone, and the administration is trying to repair them. Most importantly, the 73 kilometers of highway which passes through different districts which are currently affected due to the onslaught of Cyclone Biparjoy. That entire stretch has been divided between several agencies which have been entrusted with the responsibility of upkeep, because it's expected that as the wind speed increases, trees might get uprooted, electricity poles may come down, holdings may come down, thereby causing some disturbance for road transport at such crucial juncture. It is important to have the arterial roads open for transport and communication, and that is why several agencies, may it be NDRF, SDRF, the state disaster, have all been entrusted with different parts of the highways in order to make sure that there is no repetition of effort and that there is coordination. At such times, the highway should stay clear. As of now, the bus services that come to these areas have been completely shut down. Public transport in terms of buses and railways has been affected. Western Railway has already announced closure of several railways, cancellation of several railways passing from this area and coming here. So several measures are being taken at present in order to make sure that the damage due to the cyclone is minimized. As Gujarat's Home Minister told us yesterday, that the instruction from the centre is that there should be zero casualty and all the efforts should be geared towards that. That is why, even before the landfall of Cyclone Biparjoy, which is expected to happen today evening between Kutch and Karachi, we are seeing that a lot of measures have been put in